Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vidit Keshan. I'm Associate Editor of Travel and Tour World. We have a readership of over 6 million across the globe as a leading B2B digital media platform in the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry. We are readable in 104 regional languages and cover topics such as travel, tourism, airlines, cruise, hospitality, and technology. Our moderator for today has traveled across numerous countries with an adrenaline fueled for all. I present to you Darryl Han, the co-founder and CEO of LFG, a travel and cutlet who's probably smarter than your last GPS insight. Thank you. Over to you, Darryl.
Thanks, Vivat. Thanks for inviting me, and of course, thank you to all the other panelists and audience for joining this. So yeah, the travel landscape has fundamentally shifted. We've all seen that. But how are industry players today navigating this change? So afternoon, everyone. I'm Daryl, co-founder of LFG, as already mentioned, and I'm really excited to moderate today's panel on inspiring young travelers. So Gen Z and Millennials today, they account for over 60% of flights booked in 2024, staggering figure that reflects their prioritization of experiences over possession. Back in 2023, they represented almost 50% of all travelers to Asia Pacific alone, and this number continues to grow. But what's particularly fascinating is how they travel. We're seeing a clear preference for more frequent, shorter trip rather than traditional long vacations. And ultimately, it's not just about annual 2-week holiday anymore. It's about making travel a regular part of life. So today, I'm super fortunate to have with us, four leaders here who are shaping different aspects of this new travel ecosystem across discovery, booking, payments, and protection. And we'll explore each stage of modern travel lifecycle from dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, and sharing. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the panelists, Alex, Bobby, and Anek. Feel free to give a short brief about yourself and one-liner of what you do.
Daryl, thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Alex Yardley. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Flyfairly. So we're a global flight agency that caters primarily to the Gen Z and Millennial audience. And at its core, Flyfairly is really all about three things. It's about flexibility and choice. And we have over 650 airlines on our platform. Flexibility in bookings, which changeable bookings and cancellation protection being a very big part of that. And finally, flexibility in payments. So buy now, pay later, digital wallets, and over 100 different cryptocurrencies are currently accepted on Flyfairly today. A little about myself, as part of the leadership team for eBay in the US and Europe. And more recently, I led the commercial teams for Agoda and Booking.com across APAC. I'm excited to be here. Daryl, thank you.
No worries. Let's move over to Bobby.
Hey, hi, everyone. This is Bobby Liu. Right after the pandemic, I started traveling around the region. And as a Singaporean, I was able to get hold of a few digital wallets. But then I realized that, as what Alex mentioned earlier, all the Gen Z millennial travelers, they've started coming into the region and they really dislike using cash. And it's really a hassle, right? Especially not having traveled for maybe 2 years, and then all of a sudden you have to figure out how to use cash and all that. And I studied the market for about 2 years before quitting my job as a VC last year, and launched Qropsay, which enables travelers, non-bank travelers, to basically access a real-time payment, which, if we know from in Southeast Asia, is a QR code payment.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. And lastly, Anek.
Thank you. Very cool introduction, everyone. My name is Anek Singh. I head the Southeast Asian side of the business for Protect Group, a company with presence in over 100 countries worldwide. So Protect Group's core product, Refund Protect, partners with OTAs, booking engines, ticket platforms, and other online booking systems to safeguard customers by providing refunds on behalf of our partners while also generating ancillary revenue for them. That's in a nutshell. Thank you.
So I want to start off by asking Alex, given this context, how do you see the rise of alternative payment methods, particularly like BNPL, influencing the destination young travelers consider today? Are you seeing different destination patterns when people use BNPL versus traditional travel payments?
Yeah, Darryl, it's a great question. I think So we're seeing alternative payments, at least from our perspective. There's kind of falls into two camps. So there's the buy now, pay later piece, and then there's also the crypto audience. And there's an overlap, but you can consider them as separate entities and how they really kind of impact and shape how young travelers think about booking and affordability and access. So if we look at the data at Fly Fairly, I think there's really three key trends that kind of it really stands out to me. I think first, millennials and Gen Z, they're traveling more often when they use buy now, pay later. So instead of saving up for one big trip, they're spreading their budget across multiple short haul getaways. So they're not traveling for as long. They're maybe taking weekend breaks. And what that means is it really allows them to explore more of the world and to do so more frequently. So they're exploring more destinations as well as finding kind of really firm favorites that they can explore more deeply by going back and visiting them again and again. So that's kind of the first thing. I think the second big trend is that these longer haul trips are becoming more accessible. So buy now, pay later, it's really allowing travelers to take trips that they might otherwise would have delayed or skipped because they're able to now break the cost of the trip down into installments. So this makes long haul bookings much more attainable, right? And these 2 points, if you look at the industry data, it really does support this. And it's not just in flight, it's also across the entire travel journey. So you look at the impact that buy now, pay later has for merchants. It's been shown to increase basket values by between 20 to 40%, and also boost checkout conversion rates by about 20% as well. Right? And we're definitely seeing this in our data versus the traditional payment mechanisms. Now, the third pillar, it's really crypto, which is very different. So about 70% of crypto wealth is held by millennials. Some of these people have made substantial profits in the last few cycles. And for this audience, it's much less about affordability and a lot more about ease of access to their wealth. So rather than having to off-ramp back to fiat, for example, they just want an easy way to be able to spend their crypto profits directly on travel. So really, to sum it up, we do see behavioral shifts, and it really depends on the payment method. So buy now, pay later, the focus is really on cost-conscious but frequent travel, whereas with crypto, they're more likely to book higher-end trips with premium travel classes. That's what we see.
Jumping on to Anek, with younger travelers increasingly prioritizing authentic experiences, as we mentioned, how do you see protection products influencing their willingness to explore new offbeat destinations?
Yeah, I wanna just second what Alex said earlier just now about BNPL, because what he's really talking about is access to destinations because you can now afford it, right? It comes with an added benefit of financial offset. Then, how much are you willing to lose? Because what happens in most of the booking journeys before this is when you have something that's non-refundable, you're really thinking twice or thrice before making the booking. So the conversion rate will always remain low because you don't know if you want to go or not, if life happens to you in the meanwhile. So I think that's where protection comes in. You get more confident. You are willing to risk a little more because you know if life happens, there's something always to back you up. So authentic experiences really are more opportunities for you when you know you can book, when you have the confidence to book. That's what it provides you. That it provides you the leverage. It provides you the choice. You're willing to go more risky. You're willing to pay a little more. So, for example, for someone who lives in Thailand, going to Brazil, it's not as easy for me as it is to go to Singapore, and it's not as cheap for me as it is to go to Singapore. Am I willing to lose 9,000 baht, or am I willing to lose 38,000 baht? Right? That's the difference. And if there is RP in there, the potential not to lose 38,000 baht will increase my confidence in booking for 38,000 baht. So that's where I think protection really comes in.
Right, got it. Nice, nice. So protection really opens up, gives you that leverage and opens up your choices ultimately, which then leads to more confidence in which you may be feeling a little more adventurous or taking that longer haul trip across the world, right? So no, definitely, good point there. Thanks for sharing that, Annette. Bobby, I'm gonna plan a question for you here. Financial planning, obviously comes as a crucial part of trip preparation. You know, you've obviously done your research and you've had some market understanding. So how are you seeing travelers, travelers traditionally over exchange currencies, they stress about carrying cash. How's Qropsay planning to change that planning phase financially, right? And what are you learning about young travelers and how they want to manage their money abroad? Oh, you're muted, Bobby.
All right, hi. All right, firstly, I'm not a financial manager, so I don't manage travelers' money. But I like to, go back to what Anek and Alex mentioned earlier about this spontaneity in travel and how they are able to go on longer flights because of protection, because of, ease of using the various alternate, uh, financial instruments that they've set up. For example, crypto, right? I think what I'm trying to do right now is basically allow such travelers, right, especially the digital nomads, which I'm sure form a big part of the Annex and Alex's customer base. I think they are this group of people that travel off the cuff, you know, uh, 10 countries in Southeast Asia, for example, or 11 countries. And we have different festivities, holidays. For example, we just had, in Vietnam, we had Tet, which is the Lunar New Year. And then and then next month, I think we have maybe the Songkran or something, right? Or March or April. So people travel around the region and they just take off, right? So the last thing a Gen Z or millennial, want to think about is to say, all right, let's go for this great experience, let's say in Hanoi. And then the next thing they want to think about is, how much to bring. Yes, they may travel with credit card, but then it's always the hassle of, oh, how much do I change and all that stuff. Qropsay basically allows them to say, all right, you know what? I don't need to think about that. I just go because as I need it, my money is there and I'm able to enjoy all the local flavors, which if you notice, a lot of local merchants are adopting direct payment rather than credit card. And a lot of all these small merchants, the fees that they're paying 2.5% to 3%, is actually quite substantial if you think about, the kind of businesses that they have. Of course, the likes of Marriott's and Sheraton's wouldn't care. But then, again, I think Gen Z travelers, millennial travelers, they are not the Marriott or Sheraton, type of customers, right? They like to experience, they like to go to LFG, find, this cool ramen spot, for example, and then they just want to go. So yeah, so in terms of managing, I think if you talk about digital nomads, right? It becomes a chore. Imagine if you do not have to do laundry every week, if you're, staying alone. It's the same kind of hassle that you don't have to go to the ATM every 3-4 days, right? You're not going to travel with $10,000 in your pocket or change $1,000 worth of local currencies. You don't know whether you're going to spend that or if you don't have enough, what happens if you go to ATM? You're actually incurring more fees, right? So is there something as what Alex mentioned about this alternate payment method? Is there a way whereby you're able to change your money on the go? Think of Qropsay as your money changer on an app.
Perfect. Thanks for summarizing that. So yeah, so I think like as you mentioned, really for Gen Z and millennials, it's all about that ease of mind. Just like let me travel and let me know that I can pay simply with my home currency, right? And for digital nomads, it's really that convenience factor because like you said, it becomes a chore for them to constantly exchange money currently. So it becomes a convenience thing, but also, obviously they will then save a little bit of money more frequently, and it obviously compounds over time. Great.
Well,
Thanks for that, Bobby.
I mean, to add to that, like for example,
Mhm.
you're Australian. Let's say your friends from Australia coming to
Yeah.
Vietnam to visit you, right? I mean, to
Uh-huh.
them, they are more familiar with spending 3 Aussie dollars on a bowl of pho than $50,000, for example,
Exactly.
right?
They have no
They
idea
feel
what
a lot more
$50,000 means.
comfortable. Exactly, because at the point of transaction, they know how much they want to spend, or how much they have spent, right? That gives them that also that safety comfort that they're not being cheated.
Mhm.
I mean, all of a sudden it's like what $30 bowl of pho, that's not possible, right?
Mhm. Great. No, exactly. Thanks for that. And yeah, just to make a point though, both pho in Australia is not $3. It's closer to
Yeah,
20. But
yeah,
anyway,
but it is in Hanoi. But it
it
is in
is in
Hanoi,
Hanoi.
so
And that's why I use CrossPay.
there
Okay.
you go.
So anyways, so moving on to let's go with Anek here. So we're talking about, like that planning phase, all the financial security and that comfort and whatnot, right? How are you seeing this desire for spontaneity balance with the need for security? How does protection products in particular enable what we could call, risk-free spontaneity?
To understand that, we need to understand like how the consumer's expectations towards the overall booking journey has changed. People today, I think they're looking more for freedom, flexibility when it comes to travel, events, bookings overall. I think they're looking for assurance. They're looking for authenticity, especially if the topic of today is the younger generation, right? I'm thinking of Gen Z. So they don't want to hear about this hidden booking fees that we are so used to when we were growing up, I think. Your phone provider charging you $30 for nothing, right? Like those hidden costs, those hidden fees are really now a thing of the past, especially when it comes to this generation. And
Actually, those
because of
Airbnb cleaning fees, right?
yeah, exactly. So like those things are really a thing of the past for them, and that's what they want. They want more flexibility, more authenticity. So and if you look at it from a traditional point of view, right? Back then, flexibility came at a cost. Either the consumer had to pay or the business had to pay. It was always one of them. So if the business ended up paying the cost, you wouldn't have anything to subsidize for it or anything to replace it. And if the consumer pays, then you're losing a consumer essentially, because no one really wants to cancel when they're booking something, when they're planning something, right? When you go back to that point, and I think your essential question about the relationship between flexibility, security, or control. Today, I think from a business's perspective, there's a bridge of the gap coming in where flexibility is now a thing of an expectation for the younger generation. If I'm in trouble, I expect the business to be there for me. So I think that's where this relationship really has evolved.
Thanks for sharing that. No, yeah,
Right. And I think what Anik said earlier about hidden fees and all that stuff, back in those days, we had no choice. And we didn't even know that they were hidden fees. We just know that it is this huge figure that we are paying and we have to save up for it. But today, because travel is so accessible, right? But then, I think travelers, at the same time are also a lot more savvy. They know how to dig deep. They don't mind paying for something if they know that they're paying for it and for a peace of mind.
that's true. I think, yeah, it's really opened up there. Yeah, travel's just changed in the sense that people are a lot more savvy, as you say now, right? So they will scrutinize like what those extra costs they're paying for and whatnot. And I think it's good that, like you mentioned all that, Alex, as well, like with the margins and everything. So I can see why flexibility beyond payments is even just as important. Great. So we're talking a lot about the booking phase now. So we're seeing obviously this fundamental shift in booking behavior. Um, we obviously know that price isn't always the primary driver today. Transparency, flexibility, sometimes often ranks higher depending who the consumers are. So back to Alex, with Fly, how is Fly's fairly approach to customizable booking experiences changing traditional flight booking patterns? Are you with like what innovations are you seeing in terms of how young travelers engage with different payment options?
Yeah, look, Darryl, it's a great question. And I think, we talked about how flexibility is really at the core of what we offer at Fly Fairly. I think transparency is as another huge pillar for us. And it's not just expected anymore. It's really demanded by these travelers. But I think when we talk about flexibility to start with, I think it's not just about finding the lowest price. I think these younger travelers, they really value the flexibility and the ability to have changes when things go wrong based on spontaneity. We talked about this. But I think there's another element of flexibility that's not really covered or we haven't really touched on yet. And from my perspective, it's loyalty, right? Loyalty is a massive part of this. And it's a factor that's overlooked because of the younger generations. And I think Bobby kind of touched on this earlier. And there's actually a 2024 McKinsey study that covers this really well. And what it shows is it basically, well, this is specific to the airline industry. But you find that with Gen Zs and Millennials, they've got the lowest participation of airline loyalty programs of any generation. And when they looked into what were the drivers behind this, it's basically because the Gen Z especially, they engage with twice as many brands as other generations. So they don't like to be tied into a single brand, and they're less likely to commit to one. And from my perspective, when you look at the market, how do we kind of really address this gap? This is where I really believe in the value of open loop loyalty programs, such as Paymax, for example, on the airline side, and cashback platforms such as Shopback. They're awesome because they allow users to really earn rewards across multiple brands. And that resonates really strongly with this generation's preference for flexibility and variety. Haymax especially, I love these guys. They're doing an excellent job. And every purchase that you make earns you these miles, and you can kind of redeem these in an open loop fashion against any of your favorite hotel or airline programs. I think giving users that flexibility, not just in the booking process, but also in the loyalty to drive repeat purchase affinity, I think that's a really powerful tool. I think just finally, the other thing we touched on was really the transparency aspect. And I think we find that young travelers are far more likely to complete a booking when they feel the process is simple and it's honest. And we kind of use heuristics to kind of call that out during the booking process. And we make it very clear that at Fly Fairly, we're super proud of our 100% transparent pricing policy. We make it clear that the price that you see is the price that you pay. There's no hidden charges, hidden fees, or surcharges at checkout. Nothing like this. And I think helping to build trust with this particular audience is really key to driving repeat purchase affinity.
So I'm going to put this out there for all the panelists. How do you guys see the sharing phase influencing the next dream phase for the next trip? How are your platforms, maybe facilitating this connection?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Darryl. I think for me, it really comes down to two things. I think younger travelers, they seem to trust user-generated content far more than traditional advertising, right? I think this is sort of where LFG really comes into this. When we last had our conversation, what is it I said? I was like, LFG is like TikTok meets Foursquare. It's like this endless scroll of inspiration backed by real experiences, So I think it's an awesome platform, and I think it really ties into exactly what they're looking for. But if we bring this also back to the loyalty concept, which we talked about earlier, I think this is such a powerful tool as part of sharing. I think imagine if sharing your trip, posting photos on LFG, reviews, itineraries, all of this stuff earns you rewards. And if you added a gamification element to this, right? Imagine, let's call it like Pokemon Go for travel. I think this would be an incredible way to kind of connect this sharing phase back to the dream phase. Yeah.
Alex, I wish
Amazing.
this goes viral because it's a great idea.
Pokemon Go for travels. I might pivot.
Yeah, there you go. I link it back to what Alex just said, right? At the end of the day, I think people trust user-generated content. In today's day and age, I think the evolution or the merging of user-generated and bookings is eventually going to happen very soon. I think it's almost there. Agoda is doing some wonderful work with TikTok right now. So is Traveloka. So it's already there, but I think the synchronizing is gonna become smoother down the road. Fly Fairly, an idea for you there. But for me, right, like if I'm looking at it from the RP's perspective, I'm gonna do a very small one here. Is that the experience still matters, right? Before taking that particular picture or bunch of pictures that you're gonna take or putting down a review, and after that, planning for the next dream, there's a thing called experience. And if that experience is shitty, right? And I think it links back to what Protect Group is doing with flight disruptions. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about things that have not been live, that have not been announced yet. But it eventually comes down to that. What is your experience like? How much are you liking what you're doing before taking that particular video or reel or TikTok or whatever they call it today to booking the next adventure? The experience matters a lot, right? And I read something yesterday on Twitter about, or they call it X now, about this guy who, because his friends took a lot of pictures around the south of India, he traveled there, spent a week, had a really shitty experience, and doesn't want to ever go back there. Because of delays of train, there was a 12 hours delay of train, this and that, right? These things matter. So this is what PG probably comes in and helps out. If you're being rewarded for disruption, if you're being helped out for disruption, if you're being refunded for disruption, your experience at the end of the day gets enhanced. And that's all there is to it.
I really like that thought there.
So I've been talking a lot to digital nomads, right? Last count back in 2022, you have more than 300,000 digital nomads that pass through our region, right? So I spoke to many of them, and I also follow a lot of the digital nomad community groups, right? In of itself, that's your social sharing. That's your social influencing, right? Because every digital nomad that come to a new place, will ask for a few questions. Will ask
Well,
a
it's
few
very
questions.
community. They're very
Exactly,
community driven digital
exactly. So
nomads.
so social influencing is actually community of travelers, right? You may say that, hey, this pad thai is the best. I may not agree, but then if I know you, I trust you, I may go, right? And it doesn't matter if I disagree that this is not the best or another place will be a better one because it's personal palate, right? But at least there's a platform whereby if I see 10 people saying about the same thing, then I would think that, hey, probably they are right. Right. So I think, like it or not, we are, all driven towards that direction of seeking, I mean, in the past, we read reviews, right? But then that review only come from one source itself. But now you're talking about multi-channel, sources coming together to provide you with, as close to, a genuine opinion about something. Right. But then as a consumer, you're basically you're the one to make the decision. And if you take on a certain decision, then you shouldn't basically blame it on others who disagree with your decision. It doesn't really matter. But at least now we are given the choice of opinions that we can work on. I mean, it could be a one-off thing that something happened to that traveler. But again, it's a community thing, right? And it's true for digital nomad. I think it's also true for the younger travelers.
Thanks for sharing that, guys. Okay, I'm gonna finish up with a very quick future outlook. Like, what do you guys see about the future? And I want you guys to try do it in one line, and then we're gonna jump to the audience Q&A challenge here. So let's start with Alex. Okay, what's next for flexible booking and payments innovation?
Great question. In a nutshell, there's two key pillars that we're focusing on. One is just expanding payment options and giving travelers more ways to book on their terms. And the final is we've got some pretty cool stuff cooking on the loyalty space, and I see huge potential in Web3. So those are the two key areas we're focusing on, Darryl. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Bobby, how do you see payment networks evolving as more countries link their systems?
Well, back to what I said about this seamlessness of spending of consumerism, right? I already see so many things that Anek and Alex that can partner up with me or vice versa, right? In the sense that for my users, right, I want them to have protection, safety net. All right, I want them to be able to travel, smoothly, seamlessly, right, fairly, transparently, right, and whatever they're offering, basically give that, those kind of tick the boxes for me. So yeah, I think it's going to be just a flatter way of doing things when it comes to travel.
Great. And Anek, lastly, how do you see that relationship between flexibility, security, and control evolving in the future?
I think it's just going to evolve into several other aspects other than just bookings. I think it's going to get into more options for the users to protect over the line, over the period, I think. That's the future.
Amazing. And I might add on like a LFG perspective here. I think we're really seeing curation and personalization going to really converge together. Curation as the foundation, but then, being fine-tuned by AI algorithms to deeply personalize to cater towards an individual preference. So that wraps up our main panel discussion. We're gonna open the floor for the audience now. Anyone, feel free to raise your hand, just jump in or type in the chat, and we'll be happy
Before
to.
you guys do that, I have a question from Peter. He asked personally on my chat at Zoom. The question is, how do you make Protect Group's refund policies more attractive than traditional travel insurance? Very quick answer here. We protect further and we are consumer first, right? So these are two different answers here. So further, in the sense that we give you more protection than a traditional insurance does. We have listed more reasons than any other traditional insurance does. That's number one. Number two is we're consumer first. So we have this thing called emergency circumstances, right? Which is basically covering so many other things than just a traditional insurance, beyond traditional insurance. And we actually, which this emergency circumstance basically means we consider each situation on its own merit instead of just looking at our policies. So that's the answer. Thank you, Peter.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Anek, and great question there, Peter. Okay, anyone else? Nope, everyone's shy.
I do have a question for Alex.
Yes, let's ask
If
each
no
other
one is
questions,
asking.
please.
Shoot, Bobby. Go ahead,
I'm
mate.
just so far in your experience in terms of payment, right? How many or what's a percentage? I mean, of course, not down to the decimal point, but is there a significant percentage of your users that use crypto as a payment?
Yeah, I think it's like it depends which lens you're looking at this from, right, Bobby? We've been around for like 5 months, man, right? So we're growing extremely quickly, but I think there's a strong over-index on our go-to-market strategy. So for us, I think we're seeing the demand in both areas, and I think there's a fairly healthy split across the two for now. I think they're
Wow.
very different audiences. When you're looking to target and to drive awareness within the buy now, pay later, the Gen Z and the millennial space, these different users that have got a proclivity to certain types of payment mechanisms, whether it's they've got a attachment towards buy now, pay later or digital wallets, or whether it's crypto, they're vastly different groups and they hang out in different places. Crypto audiences, they're very big on Twitter or X and Discord, whereas buy now, pay later, you might find them hanging out more within social communities on Facebook. So I think it's for a B2C company, you're really focused on being able to target these customers where they're hanging out and to be able to connect with them and to be able to present these options in places where it really makes sense for them. So we see a pretty healthy split.
Nice. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Great question, Bobby. Okay, Shelly's asked a question. Given that LFG aims to combine elements of Spotify and Pinterest for travel discovery, what specific strategies are in place to ensure user engagement and retention, considering that competitive landscape in travel planning platform? Okay, that's an amazing question. And that's actually something that we are currently, figuring out to do. So I can tell you right now what exactly like what these gentlemen said about that whole loyalty program fix there. LFG is implementing a token system right now, whereby the more you contribute to sharing, as you like things, you bookmark, you share like one of our playlists, or you actually create one and add places to it, you can actually earn tokens in that sense. Like call it gems. Like we're gamifying the experience really. And as you earn these, these gems, these tokens, the idea is that you can obviously what do you call that? Redeem it for real world tangible value. And that's exactly what we're working towards right now to drive that user engagement and retention. And more particularly retention in that sense. Engagement wise, we have different, the beauty about LFG is that it takes on that Spotify Pinterest element where it's utility, it's planning, but it has that social element. It has that our brand name's literally called LFG. We're hot pink, so there's a lot of things we can do with that brand voice to really do fun types of campaigns that fit the brand voice. Like Spotify raps or whatnot. We did an LFG rap for the end of the year. Like getting people to check out all these top places and whatnot contributed by the community. So that's on us there. Ooh, another question. Okay, Liu, while LFG offers a platform for discovering, sharing travel spots, could you elaborate on the current monetization model? Additionally, how do you plan to balance revenue generation while providing value to users without compromising user experience? Wow, that's a great question. So I won't share too detailedly because obviously it's quite a public thing here. But how we plan to monetize is through that whole reward system. We plan to work with local businesses and brands and actually enable them to be discovered by these travelers or even local travelers in that sense. And of course, with that whole token model and whatnot, for every sort of reward or discount paid out, we'll earn a commission as part of that. So that's where we really come in with that business model there. Cool. Any further question? Okay, I think just to wrap things up then, I guess we got, just a minute or so left. We wrap up today's discussion. What's become clear is that we're witnessing a fundamental shift, how the next generation approaches travel. Through each stage from that dreaming to sharing phase, we're seeing how technology and innovation are removing traditional friction points while adding new layers of that value there. Alex has, showed us how flexible payments are democratizing access to travel. Bobby's showing how seamless payments are transforming that in-destination experience across Southeast Asia itself. And Anek has also demonstrated how modern protection products are enabling spontaneity that young travelers crave. And at LFG, we're here to see how discovery evolves into from pure inspiration to actionable personalized curation. So, what's exciting is how these elements are converging really. At the end of the day, like all four of us here, I foresee us eventually becoming partners for sure. And we're moving toward that future where travel isn't just about that destination anymore. It's about that entire journey, as we say, and we're flattening it, right? From that first spark of inspiration to the stories, shared afterwards. So thank you so much again for our amazing panelists. Thank you so much for joining us and being on board with this. And of course, Bitwat and Travel and Tour World for inviting us. Thank you all of us for joining today. I think we have a few more. I think we have one last question. I don't know if Anek here, if you want to just quickly chime in.
Sure. Okay. This one I can answer from my perspective. So what challenges has Protect Group faced in adapting to diverse international markets and how will they overcome? So basically, from my perspective, what PG has really done is it has kept its terms flexible, right? We have not really become stringent in the sense that we will not refund a particular claim because of XYZ or because of a certain restriction from a travel perspective or international or a particular country's perspective. We don't really generally do that because most of our partners, they operate worldwide, right? They operate in more than 50, 60, 70 countries. And I can't really give examples out right now, but what happens then is if you really narrow down your terms and conditions to a particular set of the region, you are alienating a large chunk of the audience, right? And that's not what we do. We are an international company. We have been around far longer to understand that each market will have a different set of expectations. And I think that's where we excel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anek, for that clutch, the clutch answering there.